We're kind of freaking out. They were going to be missing teeth.
Thank you.
Would you like an intro, or do you just want to kick off when you're ready?
It doesn't matter, whatever you want to do.
One more minute, and I'll just give you a really short intro, and you can rock out a second.
Oh, you're fine. Anything in the teeth?
You're good.
I'm good? Okay. Oh, that's from like 3 days ago, man.
Hey everyone, welcome to the MCS Red Stapler session. I'm really happy to be able to introduce Amy Grace Wells, who will be representing her session, Tragedy, Pitchforks, and Twitter, Managing Campus Crisis on Social Media. Congratulations, Amy.
Thank you. So, yay. So I get to present 2 times first thing in the morning. Ooh. It's like the Death Star's coming, which is very fitting for this presentation. Want to welcome everybody watching on the HighEd Live or HighEdWeb livecast. I'm excited to present this again because we've learned a lot of lessons at the University of South Carolina. And I'm the content strategist. I've been helping with social media since I got there. And we have a really great team that has been working really hard over the last year. And if you've been watching the news, South Carolina has been struggling this week. So me and my team and one of my coworkers who's actually at the conference with me has been working really hard during the conference to even do crisis communications while we've been here and get communications out to parents and students about the historic flooding that we're going through right now. So it never stops. Even when you're a time zone away, it never stops. And so I'm hoping that this gives you some really good tips. You can learn some lessons from us because what we've gotten to is some just really good practices. We, this week, even with the few haters that we have that are scared and worried and nervous, we have so many people saying, thank you. Thank you for communicating well with us. Thank you for keeping us informed. Thank you for understanding that we're scared. And so this is what we've learned along the way. Spring in South Carolina, it's a wonderful time. We have a beautiful historic campus. This is our horseshoe. We have girls studying under trees, which in the web we all love. We have radiant beams of light to inspire our students. It's also a time for all holy hell to break loose. Actually, conference person helped me with this. Plump. This is where it was just started. It started and it never ended. And it started last February. So really it just kicked off with spring semester. And at first I was like, okay, I got this. Oh, there's another one. Oh, we're over here. Oh, hang on. Whoa. All right. it just seemed like one after another, and at first we were like, okay, all right, yeah. Then finally about July, I was like, what, you want me to tweet what? Oh, hell no, I'm out of here. Like, so that was when I was still in the denial phase. I have since moved through to the acceptance phase. Crap storms happen, and avoidance is not the answer. Avoidance actually makes things worse. I've learned that from my therapist, which is a very important slide I'll get to towards the end. You got to just deal with these things, and they come, and for most of you, they'll come so infrequently that you won't remember what to do, and you won't actually ever get to this point. But there's no point in denying these things happen, because they do happen, and they happen for all of us. That's why we're here. And these are the things that keep us up at night. And these are the things that we fear. And so we have to talk about them together, and we have to learn from each other because they do happen. So, warning, the proceeding is going to be filled with horrible trolls, rude students, a good dose of humor, because if we can't laugh at these things, it's just miserable, and why are we here? A bit of mild profanity, and of course gifs, because we are web professionals and we do love gifs. So I want to go first with defining what I mean by a social crisis. Social crises don't just live on social. So I'm talking about any on-campus or off-campus or online event that affects an online community and a managed brand account. So it could start online, it could start offline, but it creates a community that's talking about it online, and it affects a brand account. They don't always require a response. More than likely, they do require a response from the brand account, but they don't always. And I'll have some examples where we were part of the conversation. We were mentioned because it may have been our student, but we didn't really have to respond to it, but it still added up in the conversation. So since February, here are some of the things that we've seen online. We had a campus shooting. This happened in February. It was an isolated event. It was a domestic violence event that involved one of our professors. His wife came and shot him and shot herself, and it was a very unfortunate situation. But of course, when it happens, you don't know what's going on. You don't know that that's what's happening. And so we had to think about the safety of our campus, the safety of our students. So that's what happened first. We have some issues on campus and in our state. This is South Carolina. I'm sure that you guys have kept up with the news in South Carolina in the last year. We've had some really big issues with racial tensions. And we, as a campus, are really trying to be a leader in those conversations. Our president is really out there. He's a wonderful person. He's beloved on campus. And we take pride in being a leader in those conversations and saying, let's talk about these things. We're not going to pretend like they don't exist. We want to make things better. We want to bring people together. We want to talk about it. But those are difficult conversations to have. They bring out the trolls. They bring out the people who want to derail them. And they create controversy on social media. Being in the South, anytime that this liquid that falls from the sky has the potential of turning into these things that you put in to cool your drinks, called ice, people flip out. So we had several weeks of that kind of hover state, and people really flip out. So we had several weeks of kind of managing communications around that. This is an example of something that we didn't have to respond to, but it made national news. I'm talking BuzzFeed, HuffPost, Salon, like all of them. We had, off campus, there was an apartment who had roommate issues with one particular roommate. It got to the point where they didn't trust the roommate, so they set up a webcam to see what the roommate was doing. Well, the webcam caught the roommate spitting on their food and putting Windex all over their food. They sent that to the police. That student's actually facing 20 years in prison for poisoning their roommate's food. So this hit social everywhere. Shortly after this is when I got a call from the social media manager at the other USC because of course we're USC, there's another USC, to say, hey, we should talk. Because there's some, we should like combine forces, and so that we know when people are talking about like tagging us versus tagging you, and I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. So I actually have a really great relationship with her, and we work really well together. But yeah, that's, yay, USC student. We did have a body found on campus. Again, this was something that was fairly low, moved forward pretty quickly, but it was, again, an unfortunate situation where it was a suicide. But you can imagine students walking across campus, find a body. So again, not a huge response, not like a huge crisis, but something we have to respond to. This fall, I had a situation where I got a call from the police department saying, hey, can you turn off the commenting feature on our Facebook page, because we have a female student who's being threatened with blackmail that if she doesn't give money, then vulnerable photos are going to be posted of her. This was like I hadn't dealt with this one before. Luckily, it was a hoax. It was a false blackmail. But I was like, okay, let me see what I can do. I couldn't actually turn off commenting for our posts, but I could take down the ability to post to our page. But this is becoming more and more common. The kind of revenge. The revenge porn thing, the exploitation, especially in some of the more anonymous platforms. We had the photo, we had a student who made a poor choice on campus and used a racist slur on a whiteboard, and that really ignited some of those conversations that I talked about. And we've had cataclysmic weather, like I just was talking about. We've had the 1,000-year flood in Columbia this week. And like I said, we've been working all week. We've actually closed campus for the rest of the week, and we've been trying to get information out to students about where they can eat, where they can get water, because we actually lost service to campus for our water. And so keeping parents informed as well, because we have about 40, a little bit more students that are out-of-state students on our campus. That's really scary for parents. We had a short campus blackout at one point, and again, that was a pretty small event, but when you add all these up, it's just like, boom. And then finally we had this little thing called the Confederate flag. I don't know if you heard about that one. I'm sure you didn't, but when you just add these up, it's like, oh gosh. It's a miracle I've gotten anything else done, like really. It's like the worst prize wheel ever. It's like, oh gosh. So we're just going to go ahead and pick one and kind of move in, and I'm going to give you some examples. I'm going to give you the 101 level, and then I'm going to give you the where to grow, and these are the things that we're really looking at. These are the areas that this is our next to-dos to really solidify what we've learned and where to go next. So the photo involved a dry erase marker, a phone, and Snapchat. The Snapchat was screenshotted and put on Twitter. It happens. And then conversations start, and we needed to be able to talk about that conversation. When I first saw it, we got a call and said, hey, something seems to be happening on social media. Can you take a look? I looked, and that was my reaction. Oh, okay. And the first question is that real or is that photoshopped? Because I couldn't believe that a student would actually do that. And it was real. And so, okay, well, there was outrage. And so, all right, we're going to investigate this. We're going to figure out what we can find out, and we're going to respond. It turned into a huge viral event that did challenge racial relations on campus. I have some screenshots from Yik Yak that kind of explain what happened. We really do ask that you, because it's not nice, and we don't need to see it again. Yeah, that's just the blunt answer. Crapstorm is beginning shortly. The humorous answer, the truth bomb, you know, it's not that, it's clearly the context. This is the truth bomb. And then this is when it got real. This is when it went from, okay, we need to have conversations, we need to lead the conversation, to this is bigger, we need to protect the student as well. She did get death threats, and we did have to work with our police department to protect her. So what we did, we got out in front of this and we said, hey, we've seen this. We got out in front of this very quickly and said, we've seen this. We're investigating. Some people did not take that as real action, because we hear that a lot. We're skeptics. And so it's one of those things that it does happen, and you know, but we tied it all back to our Carolinian Creed. Those of you who have honor codes on your campus, our creed is kind of like that, maybe just a step down. It doesn't talk about like plagiarism and things like that, but it talks about a moral code, kind of the rules that we want to live by on our campus. We tied it to that. This type of language isn't acceptable based on that. We don't deal with, you know, incivility. We deal with respect for everybody. And this is where, this was key. Tying it back to the values you already have on your campus. That was the biggest thing that we could do at that time. To say that this does not reflect who we are. It's not okay. We do not find this acceptable. And we're going to do something about it. We don't know what that is right now, because we need to investigate it. We need to get the facts. One photo does not make a case. But we're going to tie it to our values, and that's the important thing, to know what your campus values are. So the ones at the bottom are what we did on Facebook, kind of right immediately as it happened. The one up above is what we did in the evening. Again, like I said at the beginning, we have a really great president. We have a really great president. He's very well respected among our students, our parents. He's very personable. He's known for taking selfies with students. Like, he's great. And so we let him tell the story. We let him, in the evening, we let him be the one who say, we have dealt with this, and this is why it wasn't okay. This is why we don't want this to happen again. This is why we're going to have these bigger conversations, because there's obviously people on our campus we need to educate a little bit more. And we're going to do that. So we told what our values are, we told what we did, and we told what we're going to do. We set the expectation. And that's what I'm going to talk about. Setting that expectation is really important. So in about a week, this generated almost 20,000 messages to our Twitter and Facebook. And so we're talking direct @ mentions, comments to Facebook posts, and posts on our Facebook page. So we're not talking our hashtag. We're not talking anything like that. So this is just direct interaction with our accounts. It's huge. Luckily, at this time, I had another coworker who was helping me with the social, so I did have some backup at that point. The biggest thing we learned here is up your listening game. Takeaway number 1, up your listening game. You've got to, again, I believe this came in through our hashtag, so like, it wasn't something we were immediately tagged in. Obviously, we did get tagged in it immediately, but you got to up your listening game, because there's conversations going on out there that you may not be tagged in that you need to know about. So you got to be better than the NSA. Pick a tool. You got to have a tool. Sprout Social. I really like Sprout Social because of the smart inbox. It puts everything in one place. I don't have to switch between tabs. I don't have to like look at different accounts. It puts everything people are talking about in one place. I can add the hashtags in. I can do geolocations. I recently added our president's account, Twitter account in there. So if he gets tagged in something, it gets put in there. And that's so I can keep track of what big issues he's getting tagged in, so that I can also help my bosses stay in the know. Hootsuite, all the other ones, they work well too. Figure out what works best for your office. Find out where the conversation is happening. Is it happening on Twitter? Is it happening on Yik Yak? Is it happening, what is the campus climate for you? That's probably where you need to put the most of your time. Figure out what it is, and then be able to prioritize that way. Decide what is most important to you. You know, if certain crises, if certain issues you don't want to deal with, if it's not important to respond to certain things, if it's not important to respond to every parking complaint, then prioritize. And then get to know your campus and your community issues. We live in South Carolina. South Carolina in the last year or so has really gone through, again, those racial issues. So we know that that's an issue that we may have to deal with on our campus. You may have, you know, a hazing culture in your Greek community. You may have a controversial student government who really conflicts with the administration. Know your community, know what your most vulnerable issues are, because those are probably going to be the ones that are going to come up first. You can't plan for the specific issue that's going to happen, but you can plan for kind of the overall. And so if you know in general what might start a problem, that's what you can plan for. So where are we growing? We want to create some more flow charts, some more clear chains of protocol, just so that when people are out, you know, so I'm in Milwaukee this week. What if I was someplace where I didn't have access to internet? What if our PR director was out and I couldn't get a hold of him? You know, do I have the facilities contact so that if a building is flooded, I don't have to go searching for somebody else? That if there is a real emergency and my direct contact, I can go straight to the person I need to. So making sure that I have that available. Doing better communication with key offices who manage social media. So we work really well with like student affairs and those types of things, but just making sure that we have those key accounts, making sure that, you know, we know then and we communicate with the people doing the police, making sure that we have all those key people on board and we know who they are. I would love to get more staff in the Sprout Social to help spread the load. Again, we see everything. I read everything we get tagged in. I'm watching everything. You know, I don't respond to everything, but I'm watching it. And then, you know, ideally it would be great to get more staff time to kind of watch the anonymous accounts, the yik yaks, those types of things, because we're really not doing much in there. That's one area that, you know, it's hard because you can't take a lot of action, but you can at least, it kind of gives a heads up to if issues are starting to become an issue, so that you can maybe take some steps or start to make a plan. So once you kind of know what the issues are, you've got to define them. You got to triage. So I call this my spectrum of hell. And you can see this little chart is kind of, the beginning is kind of right before classes started, and then this is the volume of messages we've been getting since classes started. It takes time and effort, and these are all the different things that we're tracking. We track keywords with geolocation, we're tracking key accounts, we're tracking all this stuff, and watching all these messages come in on a weekly basis. So these are the three types of, you know, very basic issues that you have on campus. And if you really remember these GIFs, you can answer what stage you're in. So these are the annoyances. These are, they cause a lot of chatter on social media, but there's really not much you can do with them. So these are parking, Wi-Fi, things like with the weather. I'm sorry it's raining. I'm sorry there's puddles on campus. You still have to go to class. Well, actually, you don't have to go to class if you don't want to, but that's your consequence. That's what we learned when we were in college, right? You know, I know parking sucks. I totally get it, but it sucks everywhere. Like, we know. Trust me, we know. So again, it's not much. It's kind of ones you collect, you know, you listen so that you know what the climate is, you know what the complaints are, but there's nothing you can really do about it. Second step is the issues. And if you have this reaction, the really, that's probably where you are. It may require some action. You may need to loop in some others. You probably, this is where you kind of need to get the second opinion. Like, is this really an issue? Like, does this rise to an occasion? Safety is often not an issue at this point. It's still kind of that middle ground. So this could be student actions, students who you're like, really? You posted that on social media? Or like, really? You decided to do that? Like, okay. Severe weather, so like thunderstorms, things that you may need to get information out to students, but more than likely their lives are not going to be threatened, but they do need to know about it. And then controversial issues, things that you may need to take a little bit more time to think about or plan for to communicate with. Then you have your crises. And if that happens to your day, you have a crisis on your hands. These require immediate response. You got to get the leadership involved. The safety of your campus may be in jeopardy. Shootings, issue related to threats to students or staff, and catastrophic weather. These are the drop everything and all hands on deck. So our campus shooting falls into this. And I say no time for spell check. When the text message went out that this was happening, it actually had a typo in it. It said Shores fired on campus. And while that happened, people understood what it meant. You know, it wasn't an issue in that way. But in some ways, we got praised for that because we didn't wait. We didn't wait. It was so important to get information out to our students that we didn't wait, and it was okay. So this happened pretty fast, and we just retweeted immediately. We got that information out, stay indoors. This is all the protocols, text messaging, like the website, everything. So this happened in February at about 1:30. Now what happened is, of course, parents picked this up, students picked this up, students have cell phones. They're calling their parents saying, hey, I'm locked down in class. You know, students, I mean, you cannot communicate these days. So then parents are starting to message us on Facebook and tweet us and, hey, what's going on? We don't have any updates because the police are doing their thing as they should. We don't need to be bothering them at that point. But people are scared. People are worried. And understandably, we can't say, hey, dude, we got this, like, back off. You can't say that. You would not feel that way. You got to understand where they're coming from. So what we did is after a certain amount of time when we didn't have anything new to say, we didn't have any updates, and we were seeing people scared and worried, what we did was just say, hey. Basically what we did was we said, hey, we know you're worried. We know you're scared. We don't have anything for you now, but know we're listening. We're here. And as soon as we have something, we'll give it to you. That's essentially what we did in this last tweet, where we said we're continuing to monitor the situation. No new information is available. Continue to stay indoors. That's what we did there. We didn't have anything to say, but that's what we did. And that's really important. That part is really important. Because again, when you're dealing with crises, so that was 128, 155. So not a long time later, but again, when you're dealing with something of this magnitude, people have emotions, and they don't care that, you know, the investigation has not been completed yet. You know, people are people. So at 217, we were able to say there's no longer a threat on campus. Now think about if we went from 128 to 217 without saying anything. Could you imagine waiting that long? That's really scary. It's really scary. And then the next day, we were able to kind of start to get back on track. We got a really good outpouring from our rivals, Clemson. And so this is a really great example of kind of transitioning back in. And same thing with the last one. We were able to use our president and talk about the situation in a way that brought community in. We were able to bring it back to a community. It wasn't just about us. It wasn't about the situation. It was about the community. And that's a really good way to transition back into the normal. Because it's really hard to go from like, holy crap, to, oh, hey, there's movies on campus this weekend. Like it's really hard, and it feels really awkward, and you don't want to do it. So those are great ways to get back to normal in kind of an easy way. Find those community connections. Find those things you can talk about to say, we know this happened. We're going to get through it together. Let's start doing that. So where we can grow on this one, We are still working on really defining that spectrum of issues. So we kind of have those three basic things, but we need to go ahead and spectrum that out a little bit more. We need the full RGBIV. Some more clear protocols and expectations tied to each of those spectrum items, and then tied to the audience and channel. Parents need a lot of communication, and understandably. I mean, it's their kid. I don't have kids, but I have fur babies, and I could understand. You know, whenever I leave home, I'm constantly texting my husband and being like, are the dogs okay? Are the cats okay? Like this week, he lost water service, and I'm like, have you boiled water for the dogs? Don't give the dogs, like, no, you gotta go pick up emergency water for my animals because it's not okay. So if I'm that way with my animals, can you imagine parents? I know we hate the helicopter parent, but you gotta understand, you gotta think about the emotions. Really creating a menu of responses from a content strategy viewpoint. And again, this comes back to the strengths and values of campus. So like right now, we've had this catastrophic flooding. Luckily, our campus in general has been spared from big damage. It's mostly just we lost water service, so that really hurts our students as far as showering and things like that. But our campus does not have a lot of water damage, but our community does. We really care about service. So what are some great messages that we can start to put out based on our content strategy, based on our values, to help transition back, to help rally our students to understand that while they got a week off of school and while they didn't really have anything that they lost, other people in our community did. So those are the messages we're starting to put out is volunteer, and we have an amazing student body. I mean, 2 days ago we had like students at the food pantry. I mean, they don't have school, they don't have running water, they can't take showers, and they got up to the food pantry. They're amazing. They organized a whole, like, they have a Twitter account that has, like, where you can sign up to volunteer to help with the flooding cleanup. Like, they're amazing. They did this all on their own. And so these are the things that we want to talk about to get back to normal and tie it to that content strategy. And finally, I need a deeper bench. We're working on that. We're finding more ways that I can pull in more of my colleagues and get some more support and get some more, because again, what if I'm in a place where what if I'm overseas? What if I'm in the hospital? What if I'm in a place where I'm not available? Do you have somebody who can do what you do in the same way you do it? If you don't, you need to. So managing the mob. I'm going to have to talk a little bit faster. Here we go. Mobs on social media are so interesting, especially on Facebook, because it's like your photo is right there, your name is right there, where your hometown is, like, and some of the things they post is just, I'm like, really? Really? My Amy Poehler comes out then, and I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? How are you so mean? Do you know that there's a person behind this reading these things? There's some nights I go to bed and I'm like, I'm worried that like I'm Voldemort and I'm like, social media has become these little Horcruxes that takes pieces of my soul and like locks them away because of all the mean things I have to read. So again, I've gone through all those stages, the denial, the people are not this mean. No way they post things this mean, to the denial, to the avoidance, now I'm just in the acceptance. I'm like, some people suck. Some people suck. There are more people who are nice, but people suck. So let's just get through it. Let's get through it. And pretty much this is where I've gotten to. But the problem is, no sensitive person ever said this. And I'm a really sensitive person. So anytime I've gone through our social media, I always like go over and get coffee or do something. I'm always really nice to the next person I see because I'm like, I have to put that out in the world because of all the bad things I just took in. I have to like put extra kindness out there because it's just awful. So if you're a sensitive person, you just have to understand you'll get to that acceptance point, but it's really hard. It's really hard. So yeah, there's this little thing called the Confederate flag. And whatever side of the issue you're on, it's totally cool. We're all about respect here. We're all about civility. That's the biggest thing. But we took a stand. We actually came out before the governor, and our president said, it's time. And so when you're the first one, people create Twitter accounts just to, like, attack you. I'm like, man, you guys, okay, if you're willing to create a Twitter account to actually come at us, all right, I'll give you a little bit of respect, because that's effort. That is some effort right there. So these are some of the things that we did. The bottom is our Facebook, and the top are some of the tweets. He announced it during the memorial that we had for the Charleston shooting victims. And then some of the stuff was the follow-up. He wrote, a really nice response and a letter, and those were the things that we shared. And it goes back to our values and how we respect. It's about respect. It's about civility. It's about coming together. It's about giving everybody a chance. But when you're the first person to go, it creates a response. So again, this was about less than a week. Again, almost 20,000 responses. So again, huge. My coworker wasn't here for this. So I was reading all of those. And these were even meaner. Oh my gosh, these were meaner. Whew. And these were people who had nothing to do with us. And so this is really what it felt like. Like, I'm the little red guy in the middle that's just, like, about to die. Oh my gosh, it was kind of insane. So I have a tactic called direct and deflect. Humans, they have emotions and they communicate. They gotta. And so the mob is going to communicate. They're going to find a space. For example, when we dealt with the photo, we didn't really have an appropriate way to respond to that on Instagram, because are we going to create a photo that says, hey, we dealt with this? It's not really an appropriate way to respond. But the people who were on Instagram, they found ways to respond to us. And what they did was just take over our last post and comment. So they will find a way. They'll find a space. So just go ahead and give them a space. That's the thing. Go ahead and give them a space. Invite them. And essentially that's what we did with these posts, like the Facebook post. We knew they were going to comment. We knew they had things to say. So go ahead, give them a space. And that's what you can do with your social media. Go ahead, give them a time, give them a space, let them get it out. Because again, avoidance, what do we say? Avoidance doesn't help. It only makes it worse. So the benefit of this is it gives your advocates a space to support you as well. We had a lot of people that also chimed in and said, hey, here's some of the history behind why it's on the State House, or actually on the State House grounds. It's not actually on the State House. That's one thing they did. They said it's actually not flying above the State House. It's actually on the State House grounds. And hey, here's why it's on the State House grounds. It hasn't been there since this time. It's only been there since this time. Oh, and hey, the university doesn't fly it. So all this, our alumni were able to create all of this good, they're able to correct the factual information. They're able to support us, and they're able to be in there and advocate for us. So there's always questions about what do you delete, what do you not delete? I have two general rules. I hide or delete comments for two reasons. If they use personally identifying information, so like when we had the photo, we needed to protect the student. So if they identified the student and I could delete that, I needed to do that. That was my duty. I needed to do that. I also don't deal with profanity. It's part of our creed. That's incivility. And if you can't follow some basic rules of civility, I don't deal with you. That's just me personally. You guys set your own rules, where your thresholds are. But, I got prospective students looking at my page, and I know they use that language, but they don't need to see it. I just don't deal with it, personally. In general, I don't intervene with ranters unless there's inaccurate information. Ranters need to rant, and if you get involved, it just makes it worse. And you can identify ranters pretty easily. If they are just nonstop, if it just seems like, if you see somebody and you're like, oh, good Lord, what the heck? That's a ranter. They're not rational. Whatever mindset they're in, whether they're crazy or whether they're just emotional, they're not rational, and you're never going to win. Finally, use and trust your judgment. In very extreme situations, I've hidden, I don't delete, but I've hidden certain Facebook comments where it's been 2 or 3 people that are just going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and I'm talking like hundreds of back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it just needs to stop, and they can keep doing it because it's hidden, it's not deleted. But I don't need anybody else to get into that. And I use my judgment on that. You know, did it fit into my rules? No, but I used my judgment. That just needed to, it was getting too much, and I needed to do that. So where are we growing? Knowing where we can be strong and where we can respond. Knowing where we can shut somebody down and saying, hey, I hear you, but no. And that's really hard. That's a hard place to get to because you know, it's a vulnerable place to get to too. Because anything you put out there could be, even if it's a private message, it can be screenshotted and put on Facebook or Twitter or anything. So knowing when you can respond to somebody and saying, hey, I hear you have concerns, but they're not valid at this time. There's other bigger things going on. Like knowing yourself, knowing your institution, and knowing when you can be strong and respond. Responding to community response quicker, so being able, you know, one of the things I've been doing while I've been here is watching where the concerns are and being able to text my group and say, hey, there's a lot of questions about this. Can we get an answer? So that I can post. You know, hey, people are really concerned about this. Being able to kind of do that in real time so that I can get the answers that I need for the community. Finding better ways to update during events for better understanding. People do not understand that we can't close campus unless the county government closes. Even though we have said that like 10 times this week. It's insane. It's really hard to explain that to people 100 times and then have them be like, seriously, why can't you make a decision? It's not our decision to make. So finding better ways to explain that. So on your campuses, you got to be social. We can't do this alone. You got to plug in and reach out to your campus peers. So during these things, there's been times where I'm like, are you kidding me? We're all busy. We forget things in times of crisis. When we're dealing with crisis, we're sometimes emotional and irrational as well. So communicate after initial response. Once the safety issues are dealt with, communicate to your campus people. If you're not in a central place, reach out to your central people or reach out to your fellow campus communicators and say, hey guys, what are you guys doing? What can we do together? Hopefully, if you're in a central place, you can arm the community managers with talking points and support. So you can say, hey, here's some things we're going to talk about in the next coming weeks. It's going to be really important to talk about what services are available on campus. Remind them to check for scheduled tweets. Because when bad things happen and your student intern scheduled tweets about like, hey, hope midterms are going well, go, yay! And you just had a professor die, not appropriate, not appropriate. And we forget. So do what you can to reach out to each other and help each other in these situations. And I try to, when I can, reach out and let them know what the game plan is. Like, hey guys, this is over, but this is how we're going to transition back. This is what we're going to talk about. Here's some great resources. So where are we growing on this? Better ways to get information out to our campus community. We have a really great social U group who meets once a month, so we have a Google Plus page for them. I kind of have an email group for them, trying to get information out quicker. Doing better social training for social managers. Stronger crisis response team just within us. I'm not talking about the university's CERT team. I'm just talking about within our own office, communicating more on these types of things. Sometimes it feels like this. It feels like that umbrella is not going to do that. It's not going to help. You got to be human. Whether you're dealing with somebody on campus or whether you're dealing with the crowd, You gotta be human and understand that humans are emotional, irrational beings. And when things are scary, people flip the freak out. And they're grasping for something comforting and familiar. And this is what I've been saying all along. I'm kind of, the time's almost up, and a lot of these things I've already talked about, so this is where I start to speed. So hang with me. They're grasping for something comforting and familiar. And so that's why those updates that sometimes say, we know you're worried, we don't have anything new, but we're here. Just know that we're here, and as soon as I have something, I'm going to give it to you. That's all you have to do is be human and understand that they're scared and that what they're telling you and the things that they're saying, the mean things that they're saying, aren't necessarily about you. It's about them. They're scared. They're worried. They just want somebody to speak to them and understand. And they don't need all the information. They just know what they can expect. And so even being able to say, hey, we're going to have an update for you in 4 hours. That makes a huge difference. So use we and our, not university officials have blah, 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 blah. We've decided our services will be open. Tell them when they can expect an update. And if you don't have any updates, like I said, tell them that. It's okay. So this is Columbia. This was Columbia a few days ago. This was Columbia the day that the conference started. So this is what we've done. This was as of yesterday morning. This is what I've done since I've been here. A lot. 28 tweets, 11 Facebook page updates. We've been working a lot. Some people suck. Not just when it comes to the flood, but some people suck. And these are some of the things, so we've been trying to get all this information out to students. We've been trying to get information out. These are some of the things we've gotten back. I know that parent in the top is scared, but yeah, the concierge isn't open right now. Sorry. I understand that you're scared, but I can't answer every question like that right now. Number one, if you have pink eye, you can go to class. I understand you don't have showers. There are people who don't have homes. Perspective. These are things that make me mad. We're doing the best we can. We really are. This wasn't something we could plan. This is a once in a 1,000-year flood. Like, come on, perspective. But again, these people don't have perspective. They're irrational and emotional, and it's okay. Because, number one, to deal with those people, you need to get a therapist. And I'm serious. Get your support system. All right? I'm going to go a few minutes over on this because this is important. People are mean things are sticky things drive you crazy, and crazy people can't sleep. I was there. Get your support system. Your person or people at home can't take it all. Don't put it all on them. They don't need all this mean stuff. Have coworkers. Talk to your students about this. This is a great learning experience for them. Get professionals, like a therapist, and commiserate with them. Let it all out and self-soothe. I actually think it would be really great to have the read mean tweets session. Just make sure it's a no cell phone zone. No cell phone zone, and once a month, read mean tweets in your office. Keep the good. These are all things we've heard this week. We've had so much good that outweighs the bad. They've been giving us some really good positive feedback, and it totally outweighs the bad. We've worked hard, and we've kept our community engaged, and we've kept them informed, and it's all been worth it. We're tired, but it's worth it. And so keep the good. When you're in the middle of a crisis, print these things out and put them up where you can see them. Don't hide them on the internet. Don't just screenshot them. Print them out, put them up. Because so when you see the bad, you can immediately look at the good. Because it's important. You have to take care of your emotional and rational self as well. And then finally, laugh when you can. Because, these are the things that I keep. Because seriously, who gets into a compliment battle on Yik Yak? This is awesome. Sometimes students are cool. Social media doesn't suck all the time. Really? There's a science lab in the science lab. Come on. Oh. So keep the good because it really helps you stay rational and helps you like keep the good emotions when people do suck and when emotional things happen. And it helps you think better, think more clearly, so that you can get through the crises better. Because you got to burn it up. You don't want to burn it out. Because if you live like this, you need to step away. You need to step away, get some perspective, and move on. So thank you. Thank you to everybody. If you have questions on your campus, tweet me, email me, I'll Skype. We've learned a lot. Most campuses don't deal with all of this in 1 year, so we've learned a lot, and I'm totally willing to share. So find me on Twitter. Thank you.